The study of biology. As you know, there are thousands of ways to study the living organisms on this planet. This PowerPoint just goes over an overview of some of those ways. What scientists have learned so far is that life is always changing. And on the level of DNA, change equals evolution. Evolution being the backbone of biology. We know that life is diverse. Biodiversity refers to the many different types of organisms that live on our planet. Taxonomy is the science that classifies those organisms according to their evolutionary relationships. In taxonomy, the domain is the largest group of organisms. There are 3 domains and 6 kingdoms that are recognized. Here you see what those 3 domains are. You have bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Under bacteria, you have 1 kingdom, the bacteria. Under archaea, you have 1 kingdom, or the archaea. And under eukarya, you have 4 kingdoms, protista, plantae, fungi, and animalia. The living things we know are organized into different categories based on similarities between them. Those categories are broken down into kingdom, which would have the most number of critters in it, so to speak, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So any individual living thing in its most specific is referred to by its genus and species. To remember those, which you will learn later in this course, remember the mnemonic, King Philip came over for George's sword. If we look at one particular living organism, humans, we are classified like this. The domain is eukarya. The kingdom we're in is animalia. The phylum is chordata. The class is mammalia. The order is primates. The family is hominidae. And the genus and species is Homo sapiens. Refer to your assignment for these quiz questions. What is the order of classification? For example, when you look at those categories that we just went over, what order do they go in from the biggest to the smallest? Which would have more critters in it, an order or a genus? What is the definition of taxonomy? And the scientific name of any organism includes blank and blank. So how do we study this natural world that we live in? We study it through something called the scientific method. This includes methodical exploration, which is what makes science unique. The scientific method includes observations, questions, hypotheses, predictions, and each of those leads to what? An experiment. This is an example of how the process of the scientific method works. Notice it doesn't always run from one step to the next. Sometimes you get stuck in the middle and have to go back. So don't think of this as like you have to do step 1 before you do step 2. Notice at the end, what happens after you draw conclusions is that you go back and make more observations. After you perform your experiment, you need to analyze the generated data. You're analyzing it for the question, does the data support or not support the hypothesis that you wrote originally? If your data does not support the hypothesis, then you pose another question or another hypothesis, or identify errors in the experiment and redo it. If your data does support your hypothesis, you retest the hypothesis using the same experiment and slightly altered experiments. So what is the difference between a hypothesis and a theory and a law, which are all scientific terms that we've heard of? A hypothesis is just an educated guess. That's what most people refer to it as. However, you need to remember that it has to be a testable, tentative explanation of phenomena. You have to be able to run an experiment based on your hypothesis. So not all statements are hypotheses. A theory is a widely accepted explanation of natural phenomena. It's something that has stood up to thorough and continual testing by various groups of people. And a law is a statement of what always occurs under certain conditions. In science, it's important to remember that a theory does not become a law. They're two separate, identifiable things. So again, refer to your assignment and answer these questions. What is the scientific method? What things lead to an experiment? What happens after you draw conclusions? And how are theories similar to laws? If at any point you need to go back in the presentation and listen to or read parts of this again, by all means.